TIMA6311 Portfolio of Evidence, Activity 1, Practical Learning. Right, just a recap. Remember about my denim jacket that I also always use for differentiation. This is one learner, and I can group this learner in different groups according to the content that I want to teach or the reasons why I want to differentiate the content for my learners. So the one day he could be in this group, like this outfit. The next day we could put him in that group with that, like that outfit. And a few days after that, we can put him in this group, like this outfit. So it depends on what we are teaching and why we are teaching with a certain strategy or a particular strategy. Right, so differentiation is to adapt your instruction to accommodate the different needs of your learners. Your groupings should be flexible. That means it should not be stagnant where a learner stays in the same group for a long time, because that leads to labeling, and that's not the purpose of differentiation. And we should also do continuous assessment within our groups during the differentiation process. So differentiation is to accommodate specific learner needs, skills level, readiness to learn, interests, language, prior knowledge, multiple intelligences, and different learning styles. For example, multiple intelligences and learning styles, we could have practical activities for the kinesthetic learners, visuals for the visual learner, or we could design lessons for the intrapersonal and the interpersonal learners to solve problems on their own or in groups. For example, the skills level of learners, that's the ability groupings, we could have a higher level of skills for a particular section of math, where those learners will have activities to cater for expanded opportunities to challenge them more. We could have the middle group or the moderate level of skills where the activities is suitable for the grade, where your learners already meet the standards. And then we can have a low level of skill group where we will have activities to cater for remediation, and where you as the teacher can also spend some more time to explain and re-explain the content until they understand and to assist them. Differentiation is not labeling, and that is why it's so important to keep your groupings flexible and not to keep one learner in one group for too long. Differentiate according to the content, and that's why your learner will be in flexible groups. It's a crucial part in every lesson planning, because we want to include all our learners, and our learners have different needs and different abilities, and that is why we have to differentiate. This is just a nice infograph of what differentiation is and what it is not, so you can just have a look at that in your own time. So let's look at the context taken from the PoE document. The context is you are a grade 6 math teacher and you are going to plan a differentiated lesson on data handling for your learners that is centered around a concept of measurement. So I just want to explain the first sentence. Grade 6 lesson on data handling. So you have to teach data handling. Your learners have to do activities about data handling within the context of measurement. So you are going to choose a concept of measurement, for instance, length or volume or perimeter or time or temperature or mass, to gather your data from. For instance, I just want to jump to this sentence. If my lesson entails measuring how far their classmates can run in 10 seconds, and I want to stop there. Can you see how far is length and 10 seconds is time? So I'm combining those two concepts to gather data for my lesson, which is about data handling. All right. And it should be a differentiated lesson, meaning in my teaching and learning phase, I'm going to have different groups of learners and they are going to do different activities, all based on the same lesson data handling and the same concept of measurement. All right, I will explain again as we go on. After your lesson, you are going to design an investigation that learners have to complete at home based on the same concepts you covered in your lesson. So, if my lesson entails measuring how far their classmates can run in 10 seconds, then my investigation for homework could entail how far their parents drive in their car in one day over a period of 2 weeks. And this should be shown on a graph by grouping the data like 0 to 50, 50 to 100, etc. All right, so you are going to do a lesson. You're going to have activities in the lesson, and then for the closure phase, you are going to explain the investigation activity which they should be doing at home for homework based on the concepts that you have done in class. So the instructions is develop a lesson plan for grade 6 learners where you teach a concept that is covered in data handling. For instance, new to grade 6 is double bar graphs. So you can teach that in your teaching and learning phase. Also new to grade 6 learners is a median and mode. So you can teach that in your teaching and learning phase by using a topic from measurement. So for instance, having a few lengths there or a few masses, and they have to rearrange the masses in ascending order and then select the mode and the median, etc. All right, you understand that you have to teach data handling. You do not have to do the whole data cycle. You can choose a concept, any other concept. It doesn't have to be the double bar graphs and the medium and the mode. It can be any other thing, a teletable, it can be bar graphs, pictographs, anything. But remember, they are in grade 6 and they are doing data handling since grade 4. So keep the age in mind. Then you need to differentiate the lesson. This implies that you need to discuss in the section about the needs of the learners, that is section F, which has a new heading now in the new lesson plan template, rationale for lesson design. There you need to describe differentiation. You will need to make this up. All right, so it's an imaginary class. You are going to make up your learners' different needs. For instance, you can decide to differentiate this lesson according to abilities. Then you will have a high skill level group, a moderate one, and a low skill level group, and you will have 3 different activities for them to do in the lesson. But in section F, you are going to give me the reasons for why you have, differentiated like you have done. Rationale means your reasoning. Then in section G, Your discussion about the most appropriate teaching strategies need to substantiate your pedagogical choices for each group of learners. In section G, you are going to select teaching strategies and you are going to justify your choices. Why did you choose this strategy for this group of learners? So in other words, we do not want a general definition of the strategy. We want a discussion of why you have chosen it for this lesson for these learners. Your lesson plan should be developed for a double lesson, meaning 1 hour, and a total group of 30 learners. There are a few things to submit in this lesson, in this activity. So you will have to have a fully developed lesson plan using the new lesson plan template, which I have already uploaded for you under module guide and PoE. And I'm going to show you the whole lesson plan and also go through it now. Then you also have to submit worksheets for the 3 groups that you are doing, or the different groups that you are doing in class, and the investigation that you are doing at home. So let me explain number B to you. You are going to have different activities for the different groups in your teaching and learning phase of your lesson plan. There you will describe your different groups and you will describe the activities that they are going to do. Say, for instance, you have chosen to group them according to ability. You have your high, moderate, and low groups, and you will describe them to me and the activities that they're going to do. It doesn't have to be a worksheet with a memo of 50 marks. It can be any activity that you describe in or on the worksheet. So you can give group A, or let's say group purple, which is your moderate level group. You can give them an activity to go outside and do something, and you describe it to them in their worksheet, and then they will have to complete a few questions on that worksheet. So you can describe that on the worksheet. Then you also need to give me a memo for each of those activities. So you're going to have different groups, and the different groups are going to do different activities in the class. Then you are going to develop an investigation, which the whole class will be doing the same one at home. All right, so they should do that at home on their own. And then you need to supply marking guidelines, rubrics, or memorandums for each of the activities that the groups will do. So this is A, B, and C. Okay. Lesson plan, all the activities, the investigation, and the memos. Guidelines. Refer to the CAPS document. Remember, you are teaching data handling and you integrate within mathematics with the context of a topic in measurement. So that's already your first integration for your lesson. Use the CAPS document and reference the CAPS document everywhere where you use the CAPS document. Do some research and planning. Use your CAPS mathematics document, the document guidelines for responding to learner diversity in the classroom, which I have uploaded for you under module guide and PoE, your Lunetta et al. You can use Landsberg, etc. It's your choice. Do some research. Use credible sources and ideas, and do not forget reference, please, the proper referencing style. The focus is to differentiate your lesson to accommodate all learners. So in section F, the new heading for section F now is rationale for lesson design, meaning your reasoning for the lesson design. Discuss in there the differentiation groups. This should be more than you would normally give in a lesson plan. I don't know the learners in your class. You have to tell me about them. Discuss your different learners and their different needs. take their different learning styles, visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, their abilities, background, and language into consideration. Discuss how you are going to cater for their learning needs and the most appropriate teaching strategies you are going to use in section G. And also give reasons, in other words, justify your pedagogical choices for each group of learners in the teaching strategies section G of the lesson plan. You are going to have worksheets for each group. Your class consists of 30 learners. How are you going to group them? Discuss this in section F. You are going to have a class activity of an hour. In that class activity, you need to also teach this. Actually, it's not the class activity of an hour. It's the whole teaching lesson. So it involves teaching as well as class activity. And then an investigation which you will, or the learners will do at home after the lesson. Do not let them do the investigation in class. It's going to take too much time. They do that after the lesson. Plan your worksheets. How can your learners be actively involved in the class? Include instructions. You can use cognitive levels to differentiate them. Bloom's taxonomy. Please, people, make use of that for the different worksheets that you are going to give them. Provide marking guidelines. It is a memorandum or a rubric. Refer to your reference guideline. Provide a reference list after your PoE, not after each activity, at the end of your PoE. Use your rubric. Make sure you tick every criteria. So let's quickly go through the rubric. The first part of the rubric, before we start there, note. If a lesson plan is delivered that is based on any topic other than a differentiated grade 6 data handling lesson, a mark of 0 out of 50 is awarded. If you do not teach data handling, you do not do activities about data handling that are differentiated, you will receive a 0. It will not be marked. All right, so very important, it has to be about data handling. Routine information, that is actually section, let me quickly just check, section A of your lesson plan. That is your routine information. Your population, your lesson information, your learning environment, it is complete, everything is filled out, you get 5 marks. The CAP-specific aims of the lesson, your the aims is section B. Central aims are thoroughly listed, correctly reflect the lesson being taught, and are clearly linked to the CAPs and is referenced. The CAPs is referenced for 7 marks. Objectives of the lesson, that is section D. Lesson objectives are written and a measurable verb is present in them. They are written from the perspective of the learner and are clear. Please take note of this one. Lesson objectives are written but are out of scope for the required grade and topic, then you get 0 or 1 mark for that. Curricular integration, this is section E. A description of curricular integration is given, and it shows how the student intends to implement the integration. In other words, this counts 7 marks. So many times I get lesson plans where a student says curricular integration, none. Then he or she loses 7 marks. You have to integrate. The first integration will be with mathematics, measurement, and you have to give a description of how you use that in your lesson. This is the important part, the consideration of the learners. This is in section F. The learner's needs, interests, and characteristics are considered and discussed, as well as their implications for teaching and learning of the content of the lesson. And this is where you describe your different differentiation groups. Teaching strategies and differentiation in section G, a discussion about the suitable teaching strategy or strategies draws on discussions about the demands of the content and considerations of learners, showing pedagogical reasoning about the best way to teach this content to these learners. And that's why I say it should not be superficial or general. It should be detailed for this content and these learners. This is section G. In total, this first part of the activity counts 40 marks. Then part B is your lesson development. So this whole rubric is applicable to section H of your lesson plan. The introduction, the lesson is introduced in a logical and engaging manner so learners know what to expect and what is expected of them. Prior knowledge is established in an engaging way. So wow us with this intro. The teaching steps and learner centering. This is the teaching and learning phase of your lesson plan where the most appropriate teaching strategy has been selected and you have shown us how the teacher as well as the learner are actively involved in the construction of their knowledge and the scaffolding of the lesson content. So in this section, these two sections of the rubric, you need to teach the data handling. You also need to describe me the different groupings that you are going to use and the activities that they are going to do in your lesson. The conclusion. In the conclusion, you are going to describe the investigation that they're going to do at home. You are also going to conclude your lesson and recap the key points and also transition and link to the next activity or the next lesson. In total, section H of your lesson plan is 40 marks. Then for the remaining 20 marks, the activities, the 3 activities that you decide on, or 2 if you have visual and auditory, or visual, auditory and kinesthetic learners, then it's 3 groups. You decide on the groups. It's your learners, your imaginary class. You have to differentiate, all right? A different activity for each of the groups. The activities exactly match the targets to be achieved, the lesson objectives and the targets for each of the differentiated groups. The activities are relevant and appropriate for South African children, not American, and the intermediate phase, meaning grade 6 learners. Then the investigation. The activity encourages the learner to investigate, analyze, and interact with their environment by collecting data that is relevant and interesting to a grade 6 learner. Why we say this is because they have been doing data handling since grade 4, so please give them an activity that is age appropriate. They are in grade 6 now. Challenge them a bit. Right, now I would like to go to the lesson plan. The lesson plan document is the updated lesson plan, the 2022 lesson plan template. I have already uploaded this lesson plan template for you on VC Learn under the folder Module Guide and PoE. Please make sure that you use this one, otherwise you are not going to earn marks. Right. Student information, this is your information that you fill in here. So you are going to work on the right-hand side of the table. Lesson details, the grade, the subject, topic, date of lesson, number of learners, duration of lesson. Easy 7 marks to earn for the first part of the rubric. CAP specific focus, reference the caps here. Please write it all out here and reference the caps correctly, and then you earn 7 marks. The summary of the content to cover. Briefly describe what content you need to cover. This will inform the lesson objectives and choice of teaching strategy. You describe it here in this column. Lesson objectives, make sure you only stick to 3 or 4 lesson objectives and that they are written from the perspective of the learner and that they are measurable. And you are going to use the CAPS document, so make sure that you reference the CAPS document here, and then you will earn 7 marks. Important, curriculum integration. For this, a description here at the bottom, you will earn 7 marks. If you leave it open here, you can't get any marks. If you type there none, you deserve 0 marks. Okay, so that, if relevant, is not applicable to us. It is relevant to us. Now I want to get to the important 2 sections. Section F, the rationale for your lesson design. Read through this column, answer these questions in the right-hand side, and then you also need to describe the different differentiation groups here, what the needs of your learners are, and why you have decided on these groupings for this content. So that's why I said in the beginning of this workshop that this section will be a bit longer than you are used to. Okay, because you need to describe your differentiation groups. This is section F. You have to listen very closely now. Teaching and learning strategies, you are going to tick one of these boxes to indicate which learning strategy, teaching and learning strategy you have decided on. If you tick other, you have to explain your strategy here. Then this column here, this little itsy bitsy teeny weeny column here, which we might forget, is the most important one for section G, because this is where you have to describe your pedagogical choices. So you have to give the reasons for why you have chosen those strategies and why you have chosen it for your different differentiation groups. Okay, please, I do not need definitions here. I know what the strategies are. You should discuss them in your own words and make it applicable to your imaginary classroom or class and the content that you are teaching. Lesson phases. So this is part B of your rubric, section H, where you have your intro, your teaching and learning phase, and your closure phase. In your teaching and learning phase, very important, you need to teach, show you how you are going to teach the new concepts or the concepts, what you are going to do as the teacher, how you are going to scaffold the concepts, what the learners are going to do, how they are going to be actively involved in the lesson, what they are going to do during the class activities in their different differentiation groups. For instance, you can start out your lesson by using a direct instruction where you have the whole class and you explain to them what are mode and medium. Then you can have a small demonstration of what it is on the board, and you can also involve a few learners from the whole group. And then you can demonstrate the double bar graph, for instance. So you are going to teach, and you can teach the whole group. Then you break up in different groups, and then you have different activities for them to do in each of the groups, where you might have different strategies. You are going to use the small group strategy, where you have the different groups, and they are all going to do a different worksheet or activity, according to the reasons that you have stipulated in section F and G for the different differentiation groups of your learners. So if you decide on using differentiation according to ability. You will have a high-level skill group, a moderate level that meets the standards, and a low level where you will also be actively involved in helping and assisting them to construct their knowledge. All right, so 3 different groups for abilities where they do different activities. In the closure phase, you will describe the investigation, what they need to do. You will recap the key concepts, and you will also link it to the next lesson. You do not need to create an assessment. You can use your investigation or the class activities, those differentiated activities, as the assessment. So you can just describe it here that you are going to use those. So you actually do not have to fill this in. You can just indicate that you are using the activities. So as you clearly heard the dogs barking, I have to also accommodate them in my lesson. All right, by shutting doors and windows and everything. All right, so you do not need to develop another assessment, okay? So please don't worry about that. You do not have to fill in this lesson reflection because you are not teaching this lesson, so you cannot fill it in. How are you going to lie here? So we are not expecting that of you. So do not fill this part of the lesson plan. This is the new lesson plan. Please remember to use this one. All right. I quickly want to show you on BC Learn what I mean, where I've put everything. So just quickly bear with me so that I can select the correct tab. On VC Learn TIMA6311, you will have more resources here at the left-hand side. There at the left-hand side, you will see more resources. Then you click on the heading Module Guide and PoE. And then you will see there are Module Guide, the TIMA PoE, the document. Here is the updated lesson plan template, which you should use for all your lessons going forward, for all the modules. Here's the quick reference guide. Here is my PDF of the slideshow that I've just given to you, guidelines for the PoE Activity 1. And then this document, if you click on it, it will look like the CAPS document, but it's not. It is guidelines for responding to learner diversity in the classroom. Can you please download this and start reading through this? This is very, very important for our next learning units as well. We are going to do learner diversity. So this is a document that is developed by the Department of Basic Education that we use in our classrooms. And there you will see there's a lecture at the end where they show you actual lesson plans and how they tier their groups. Tier group 1 is for low skill level and tier group 2, and so they go on. So they explain to you how to use differentiation. If you are unclear, uncertain about what to do, read through that document and it will all become clearer. I guarantee you. You can learn a lot from that document. Let me just quickly see. Okay, thank you for the load shedding notice there. Katlehu, ma'am, are we supposed to include the worksheets in the TNL phase? No, you are not including the worksheets in the teaching and learning phase. You are just quickly or briefly describing what they are doing. You include it at the end of the lesson plan. All right, so the lesson plan is as usual with the worksheets and memos and investigation as additional pages. You can just say the teacher, Nyeleti. It's best to address in the third person. All right. So just to recap on Kotlego's question, which is a very good question. In the teaching and learning phase, you are going to give a short description of the activities that the differentiation groups are going to do, but the actual activity and how you have developed it, which should be ready to hand out to grade 6 learners, you will attach at the end of your lesson plan. It will be separate pages with memos or rubrics, as well as an investigation with a memo and a rubric.